Don't we all know that one child in our friends or family who we know has great potential to achieve some really good things in life, but at the end of the day always ends up doing some naughty and nefarious deeds? And somewhere deep down you always root for him that he will learn from his past and eventually he will make the right decisions and move in the right direction in life. Well, that is kind of the similar case with this car as well, where its previous pre-facelift car did not get a lot of things right. But thankfully, this one, the facelifted car, does address all those issues and makes for a much better car on the road. Hello and welcome to the Cornea Impression. My name is Bhuvan and today with me, I have the Jaguar F-Pace facelift. Now, to be fair, the Jaguar F-Pace has always been a good looking SUV right from the time it was shown as a concept back in the day. And since then, this car has retained its sporty character, and what the facelift does is kind of enhances it in small subtle touches here and there. Like for example, the headlights, which are now slightly more aggressive, they are slightly more cut in, and at the same time they have this new double J design on the inside of them. The grille has a much more bolder diamond shaped design on it. At the rear as well, the tail lamps have been slimmed down to give it a more minimal look, which kind of also makes it a little bit more sporty than before. And these small design changes sharpen the car's look a little bit, while at the same time keeping that character of the car, keeping that character of the SUV intact. While the exterior updates are kind of subtle and discreet, it's the inside where Jaguar has actually thrown the towel and given it a complete overhaul from what it was before. If you've ever seen the previous generation F-Pace from the inside, well, then I don't need to tell you, proof is in the pudding. But if you haven't, let me just tell you, they have literally taken everything out of the previous car and replaced it with a fresh, completely overhauled interior where you have brilliant selection for the choices of material that are used. Across the interior, you will find very little plastic actually. Most of the materials are either leather or they are brushed aluminium or some sort of a metal which feel really good to the touch. For the infotainment, Jaguar basically went to Land Rover and borrowed their entire system, which sits over here on a 11-inch screen in the center. Now, this has to be one of the prettiest, one of the most beautiful user interfaces of any modern car in today's day. That said, however, there is a functionality gap where sometimes some buttons don't perform, some clicks don't happen, and there is generally a little bit of disconnect between how you want to use the system and how it wants to react to you. Overall, if you see the center console, you will realize that the design has become a lot more minimal, where most of the buttons have now been deleted and most of the functionality of the car now resides within this touchscreen. That said though, there are a few annoyances, like for example, the auto start stop functionality now resides within the screen. It isn't that much of a chore to get there every time, but just, doing it time and time again kind of gets to you after a while. There's a really nice sounding Meridian sound system in here. There are memory seats, there are cup holders in the center console, there's a wireless charging mat as well. And also one thing which I really like about Jaguars and Land Rovers also is that they haven't completely switched to the latest USB-C tech, where you still have a traditional USB-A port as well as a USB-C port. So in case you don't have the latest cable with you or the latest phone with you. But my favorite part about the car's interior has to be this color combination. This combination of red leathers, black plastic and leather, and a little bit of silver trimming here and there in metal makes it feel such a unique place to sit in. It gives a sporty appeal, at the same time a very premium and luxurious vibe. At the top, you have a massive glass roof which extends all the way from the front seat to the rear seats. Unfortunately, because it's a single piece of glass, it does not open. But what that does is it allows a lot of light to come inside the cabin, make this place feel a lot more airy and a lot more open. Then you have Jaguar Coventry established 1935 written on the air conditioning unit as well as on the seats, to give you an idea that the car you're sitting in and the brand you're dealing with is almost 100 years old, and it's just 12 years that it's going to celebrate its centenary. So the front seats in the F-Pace are comfortable, they look great, you're surrounded by some incredible materials, and it's a really nice place to be. But how does that compare to the rear seats? Getting into the back seats, the first thing you realize is because of this wide opening, it's actually quite easy and effortless to get in and out of the car. Over here at the back, you have AC vents at the center. This car has a 4-zone climate control, 2 for the front passengers and 2 for the rear. You also get a charging socket over here at the back, and these seats, which have a good amount of under thigh support and they have a cushiony back support, also get recline functionality where you can recline the seat a little bit back. It doesn't recline all the way as much as you'd probably expect in a full-size Range Rover, but it does give you that level of flexibility while you're sitting here for long periods of time. So that pretty much covers the interiors of this car. But what's most crucial, critical and important is that this is a Jaguar, which means this is a car which is meant to be driven. So now it's time to hop back into that front seat and take it out for a drive. Now, the first thing you realize when you start the car is that this engine, which is a 2-liter diesel unit, sits quite silently while idling. It doesn't create too much of ruckus. Most of the sound from the engine has been dampened and kept out of the car, so you don't hear a lot of it. It doesn't intervene with your thought process and with your cocooned feeling of the interior. The second thing you realize the minute you start driving this car, especially on some slightly bad and broken patchy roads, is that the interior is put together really well. There is not a single squeak, there is not a single rattle from any of the panels, and everything feels very, very tightly and very neatly put together. And then when you start building speed, you realize that the suspensions have been tuned slight bit differently in this facelift. Now, I tried looking up the official press documents and there is no mention of a change in the suspension setup, but I definitely feel that there is, because I drove the previous generation car and the previous generation car felt a lot more stiffer, especially when you were over bad and broken patches of road. Almost the smallest undulation or the smallest crack in the road would get through and kind of unsettle the cabin on the inside. This though is a completely different feeling where it feels very, very well damped. It feels very isolated from the outside, no matter how bad the road situation is. Like on this particular road, if it would have been the previous pre-facelift car, it would have literally thrown me around from left to right. It would have had such stiff suspensions that I would actually be not enjoying sitting inside this car at this particular moment. But right now, this suspension setup feels so much more pliant with these kind of road conditions. This is the D200, which means it's the 2-liter Ingenium diesel 4-cylinder engine, turbocharged. This puts out about 200 horsepower and 450 Newton meters of torque. And for the size of this car, it is pretty okay in terms of how it can accelerate, how it can pick this car up from the line. Putting the car as well as the transmission in sport mode, things do get a little more hurried up, where the transmission holds the gear obviously for a lot longer and the engine is a lot more responsive to your throttle input. That said though, the suspensions are one place where things don't change, because these are normal mechanical suspensions and not electronic suspensions. That said though, the suspensions do stiffen up very reasonably when you start building up speed, so that when you actually approach a corner, the heft of the steering as well as the stiffness of the suspension give you such a nice drive through the entire corner, where you don't feel a lot of body roll in the car. And even at good speeds, the car is able to maintain its composure without breaking a sweat or without making you break a sweat. And when it comes to braking, brakes are quite sharp for such a big heavy car. And that's the best part. When you suddenly come across bad and broken road, the suspensions, when you slow down, the suspensions again get back to that soft settings of theirs, where they again give you a very comfy ride through that patch. And then you get back on the gas and the suspensions and the steering once again stiffen up to give you a much more sporty ride. This being the diesel, the engine does become a little rattly when you're trying to push it beyond, let's say, 2,500-3,000 RPM. But then with that noise, there's a good healthy amount of speed that builds up as well. This car, the F-Pace, sort of changes character when you exceed speeds of, let's say, 65 to 70 kilometers per hour, where below that speed, it's a very tame, it's a very softly sprung, lighter steered, more accommodating for city traffic and maneuvering around kind of a car. And suddenly, as you go above 70 kilometers per hour, the character of the car suddenly once again changes. It starts to look like a car which wants to attack the corners at maximum pace. It wants you to push it. It encourages you to push it. It encourages you to go a little bit faster, maybe a couple of more kilometers per hour into the corner, where you know, because the kind of feedback you're getting from the car, it gives you that confidence to push a little more. At the same time, it feels incredibly planted, very, very affirmative through the corners. Somehow I also feel that the transmission and the gearing is kind of perfect, where you don't really feel the need to ever, though you have pedal shifters, you never feel the need to go to the pedal shifters, because the upshifts and the downshifts are precise exactly when you'd want the car to shift. That's the thing with Jags. They always are great fun and really involving and engaging cars to drive. In the end of the day, well, it is that naughty boy who has finally learned its lesson and has changed direction to where and how it wants to lead the rest of its life. This car has completely been transformed with this facelift. The interiors are a great place to be. They are comfortable. The selection of materials is super incredible. It feels really high quality, well put together, and really premium. The driving experience has also changed completely. It's much more softer when you need it. It's stiffer when you want it. And that's the kind of ideal balance that this car and Jaguar in general usually always did strike. Last generation, or the pre-facelift F-Pace, kind of went a little skewed in that direction. But with this facelift, they have got it all back. They've got it all together. I really think that not many people who are looking for a car in this segment and category consider the F-Pace or take the F-Pace really seriously. And I do think and I do feel that they should, because this car is so much more engaging. This car has so much more character compared to the other cars in this segment, that once you drive it, once you've experienced it, everything else might start feeling a lot more blander than this car. What do you think? Let me know down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to catch you in the next one. Till then, goodbye.